The hum of Chicago O'Hare was a funeral dirge for my plans. I stood at gate B-23, a useless boarding pass clutched in my hand, watching the plane that was meant to take me to my mother's 70th birthday disappear. A wave of failure and frustration washed over me. It was in that moment of despair that I noticed her. She was a small, frail woman cloaked in a patterned shawl, her silver hair in a loose braid. Her eyes were sharp, ancient, and they were fixed on me as if she had been waiting. She moved silently, stepping directly into my path. "You missed your flight," she said, her voice carrying a low Eastern European murmur. From the folds of her shawl, she produced a small, gleaming silver needle. "Take this," she whispered, her voice a solemn command. "Check your husband, and you will see the truth." I stared at her, then at the needle. My husband? What truth? The words were absurd, but something in her eyes, a deep, unsettling certainty, held me in place. I tried to refuse, but her hand was surprisingly steady as she pressed the needle closer. "You will know soon enough," she said. "Don't ignore it." My heart pounding, I took the cold silver needle. When I looked up again, she was gone, vanished as if she had never been there at all. I stood alone in the bustling terminal, clutching the needle, a cold dread settling in my gut. I didn't know it then, but this bizarre gift would unravel everything I thought I knew about my marriage and the life we had built. The taxi ride home was a blur. My mind replayed the bizarre encounter at the airport, my fingers instinctively brushing against the silver needle now tucked away in my purse. I tried to dismiss the woman's cryptic warning, but the fear I had been ignoring for years was now impossible to deny. Cracks had been forming in my 15-year marriage to David, and with every mile closer to home, the doubt grew. I walked into the house to the sound of voices from the living room. I froze, hearing David's voice, tense and clipped, and another man's, cold and threatening. I pressed myself against the wall, listening. The tension in our house was unbearable. Then came a heavy knock on the door. The man I had overheard the night before stood there, his cold, assessing eyes landing on me before returning to David. "1.5 million, David. Silverman doesn't like waiting." The threat was clear. If David failed, it wouldn't just be his problem. That night, a black SUV rolled to a stop outside our house. 4 men got out, moving with military precision. My heart hammered in my ears. David appeared in the hallway, his face drained of all color, his eyes giving me a silent apology. They took him, shoving him into the back of the SUV, which disappeared into the night, leaving a chilling silence in its wake. I called my old college friend, Andy, who was now with the DA. He told me Silverman was a major drug kingpin, and that the pills I found were synthetic meth. He sent a team over, and they confirmed my worst fears. David was tangled in something far darker than I could have imagined. I was no longer a bystander. I was in the middle of a very dangerous game. That night, I searched the house again and found a loose floorboard in our bedroom. Inside was a flash drive and a letter from David. His handwriting, once so familiar, now looked like a farewell. If you're reading this, then it means I've run out of time. I was recruited by the DEA to infiltrate Silverman's organization. I love you. That part was never a lie. I watched the video on the drive, my heart shattering with every word. My husband wasn't a criminal, but an undercover agent. He was a man caught between 2 lives, and now I was trapped in the crossfire. The next day, Andy sent agents to move me to a safe location. In a downtown office, a man named Stan introduced himself as David's handler. He seemed trustworthy, but Andy's voice, whispering through a hidden earpiece, was a stark warning. Don't trust him. He's the mole. Stan pressed me for the flash drive. As I talked, I noticed a photo on his desk. David, bruised and handcuffed, but the background was a flat green, poorly edited. My husband had been pasted into the photo. "This is fake," I said, my voice trembling. Stan's calm demeanor vanished. He pulled a gun and leveled it at me. "You should have just handed over the drive," he said. Suddenly, the door burst open, the room filled with shouting agents. As Stan used me as a shield, I plunged my hand into my purse. My fingers closed around the cold, sharp silver needle. Without a thought, I swung it backward with all my strength, and the point drove deep into his chest. Stan gasped, his grip loosened, and I wrenched free just as the agents swarmed him. He was beaten, but alive. As they dragged him away, his eyes found mine, filled not with power, but with fear. Back at the field office, Andy placed the USB on the table. It had enough evidence to put Silverman away for life, but it didn't answer the question that haunted me. Was David a hero or a villain? Was the man who said he loved me a spy who had fallen too deep, or a criminal who had spun one final lie? The needle had revealed the truth, but the truth was a maze of contradictions, leaving me alone with the impossible question of how you grieve for a man you're not sure ever existed. "1.5 million, David," the stranger's voice said. "That was the deal. You don't pay, you don't get to walk away." My heart nearly stopped. David, my David, was in deep with a man named Silverman, a name that struck an immediate, terrifying chord. The next morning, while David was in the shower, I acted on instinct. I ran the silver needle along the seam of one of his shirts, and the fabric tore, revealing a tiny plastic packet. Inside were small, crystalline pills and a phone number. My hands went cold. David walked in, his eyes locking on the packet in my hand, his face drained of all color. He demanded what I was doing with it, snatching it from me. He tried to pass it off as smart drugs, but his eyes betrayed him. He wasn't telling the truth. He left for work, his smile too smooth, too deliberate, leaving me alone with my terror and the cold reality that the man I married was a stranger. I had found the first crack in his facade, and I was terrified of what else I might find.